Okay, so hi everybody and welcome to your first Make a Change video. So this session is on portions. So today we're going to be talking about portion sizes, each of the food groups, and kind of how to kind of measure or judge what is a kind of more appropriate portion size for yourselves. So what I have in front of me is not lunch, unfortunately. It's basically the Eat Well guide, which you'll find in the little British Heart Foundation book, just on the inside. So you all have a copy of that by now, and you can have a wee look at that as we go through the video. So what we'll do is just work our way through each section. I'll explain a wee bit about the portion sizes. All the information is in here, as well as the supporting information that I give you. So once we finish the video, have a wee look through it all, and obviously myself and Sam will get in touch with you to kind of discuss what your goals are for the week, have a chat through any further information that you want, and hopefully set you on your way to achieving your first change. So what I would say to start off with is we can't give you a portion size for every single food group. So we're going to try and cover most of the kind of food that you would find, but hopefully as we go through this, you'll begin to pick up and get a feel for more what is an appropriate portion size and what's right for you. There is no right or wrong portion size in a way. It's much more, this is just about trying to educate you on what a kind of portion size is, what you usually have, and working out what's the kind of middle ground for you, so what's right for you. As we've said many times now, Make a Change is not a diet, it's not a quick fix, it's about a lifestyle change. So it's about working with you to find out what's right for you. So you shouldn't be going hungry, you shouldn't be starving yourself, you shouldn't be skipping meals, nothing like that at all. It's just about finding out what's the right for you and what's going to work for you. So we'll get started, and what we usually start with, or what I always start with, is the kind of carbohydrates. So the kind of yellow section on the Eat Well guide that's in your booklet. So we'll start to have a wee look at the portion size here, and from experience and from previous groups, this is one that often catches people out. So I kind of class these as kind of go-to foods, so they're quite easy. So if we're hungry, we grab a bowl of cereal, we grab some toast and cheese, we grab whatever else it might be. So it's quite easy that we can overeat on these foods, so quite important that we begin to learn what portion size is and how much of this food group we should be eating. It is an important food group, so carbohydrates get a bad press, so you should be having them in your diet, and we'll talk a bit more about that next week in the next video. So some of it's quite straightforward, some of it needs a little bit more kind of measurement, but we'll show you an easy way to do the measurements without having to get the scales out or anything else like that. So quite straightforward. In a day, what's kind of recommended, what's in the booklet, is kind of between 7 to 8 portions a day. So I'm going to simplify that for you further, and I just kind of say 6 portions a day, and that means you can have 2 at breakfast, 2 at lunch, and 2 at dinner or for your tea, and that's a nice even spread. It also means by taking it down to 2 for each meal, you can have that little bit extra, which, let's be honest, we all kind of have. So it'll be that extra little bit of pasta, it'll be that extra little bit of potato. So generally speaking, 7 to 8 portions a day. I would err on the side of 7, but to make it easy, to make the math simple, 2, 2 and 2. So 2 breakfast, 2 lunch, and 2 dinner stroke tea. So what does that look like? So things like bread is quite straightforward. It doesn't matter whether it's whole grain or whole meal, whether it's white or brown, a portion is a portion, and that's the same for all the kind of food in this group. So white or brown bread is 1 slice, is 1 portion. So what you see here is 1 portion, as is that. So put them together, you've got your sandwich, and that would be 2 portions of bread. So that's quite straightforward. Things like rolls and bagels, because they're a lot denser, it's actually only half as a portion. So technically speaking, if you had 2 rolls at lunch, that would be 4 portions from this section. So you can see if you've already had a couple of slices of toast for breakfast perhaps, and then you've had 2 rolls at lunch, that shoot up to your 6 portions already without even having any snacks, having any dinner, or having any tea or anything like that. So this is where we ask you to start being mindful and start thinking about how much of these foods am I actually eating. So that also includes things like wraps and pizzas. Half of those tend to count as a portion as well. And then if you're having a full wrap, that tends to count as 2. But again, all this extra information will be in supporting documents that we'll send you, post or email out to you. So then we come on to things like potatoes. Everybody's favourite. So potatoes is actually just 2 egg-sized potatoes counts as 1 portion. So it's not very many really, but remember, you can have more than one portion per meal. So it's not about only having 2 egg-sized potatoes, it's about thinking what you usually have, what the portion size is, and figuring out what's the right amount for you. So it's just about reducing rather than eliminating. So be mindful of that when you're having your Sunday roast. Other things like cereal can be a little bit more difficult, but essentially the best way to measure out and without having to get out the scales is just to use your hand. It shows you in here how simple it is, so please do refer to this. But to make things kind of quite simple, and just to give you an example, here we've got a kind of bowl of cereal. It tends to be a kind of normal size bowl, I would say. So I've just poured that out, and you see it's relatively full, but I don't think overly full. And if I start to kind of measure this out, that here, what's in my hand, is essentially a portion. So that would be 1 portion there. And then if I do that, that would be my 2 portions, which I'm absolutely allowed to have. And then that still leaves probably about the same again in the bowl. So you can see with these types of foods, it's very easy to overeat, because it tends to be we just pour in, we don't bother measuring it, we don't worry about that type of thing. We just think that's an okay size of bowl, so that's what I'm going to eat. So all you really need to start doing is just a wee handful, make sure your hands are clean, and that'll give you a better measurement. And obviously, as we said, this isn't about going hungry, so we'll talk more about this next week. But if we're reducing the amounts in some food groups, what we want to start thinking about is how we can replace that food from other food groups to make it a more balanced meal. So for reducing the amount of cereal, it might be we add a bit of fruit in at breakfast, something simple like that. Same idea with pasta. This little tub here is something that you would easily eat for dinner or for lunch, but actually when you start measuring it out just using your hand, you soon find that that's kind of 1 portion. Spilling everywhere, that's 2 portions, and then you've really got another third and a bit there. So you're almost hitting 4 portions just in that small wee tub. And that's where we kind of say start being mindful of how much of this food that you're actually consuming without realising it, because it's very easy to go over into the kind of 10, 11, 12 portions without really trying. And that's why we ask you to do the activity this week, where when you're starting to record your portions, start to write down how many you're actually having, to see how many from each food group. And as I said from earlier on, quite often you will find that it's this food group here, so potatoes, bread, rice, pasta, types of starchy food, that tends to be the one that we eat a lot more than what we think we do, just because of how much an actual portion size is. So hope that helps clear that kind of up. Obviously, as I said, there is more food examples in the supporting information, and you'll all have a copy of that. So if we move round, we'll come on to dairy and alternatives. So that's really things like milk, cheese and yoghurt. Quite straightforward. A kind of small tub of yoghurt is one portion. So that keeps that simple. So the big tubs that I tend to eat tend to be a lot more than 1 portion, so that's probably something I should be quite mindful of. But yeah, 1 small tub is 1 portion. Things like milk, it tends to be a kind of small glass, so about that much is 150 to 200 mils is a portion. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's whole milk, semi-skimmed or skimmed, a portion is a portion. Obviously, if you're watching weight, if you're trying to reduce your weight, you want to maybe try and use semi-skimmed or skimmed milk, but certainly in terms of portions, a portion is a portion. The thing there as well is you might not drink much milk, but you've got to think about if you're having cereal in the morning, how much milk do you use with that, and then if you're having lattes in the afternoon or cappuccinos, other milky type coffees, all this contributes to your actual portion size. And that would tend to be 1 kind of medium latte is about 350 mils. So again, that's easy to overeat or overconsume these portions without really realising it. Next up we have cheese. So technically it'd be wonderful if that was a portion, but sadly that is roughly a portion. So kind of a matchbox size is 1 portion of cheese. So it's not a huge amount, and that's where we need to start thinking about how much we're having and what else can we do. So the example I tend to always give here is if I'm having a baked potato for lunch and I tend to have a latte in the afternoon, if I'm having my baked potato with cheese, maybe not have the latte in the afternoon, I would just have maybe a white coffee or even just an Americano. Then the next day, if I'm having just a chicken sandwich for lunch, I can then have my latte that's got more milk in it because I've not had the cheese. So I hope that kind of makes sense, and obviously we'll explain that to anybody who wants to ask us any questions. But as I keep saying, it's just about being a bit more mindful of how often we're having certain foods. So that's kind of the milk, cheese and yogurt, and that's the kind of dairy section. So moving on, we then come on to protein. So, sorry, I didn't actually say, roughly in a day, you're looking kind of 2 to 3 portions from this dairy section. So essentially what you see here, the milk, the yogurt, and then the cheese would be your kind of daily allowance from that section. So, on to protein. So protein is obviously all your meat, your fish, your beans and pulses, lentils, all that kind of good stuff as well. So alternatives to meat and fish. So in terms of portion sizes, what they try and suggest is something like a deck of cards as a portion. So throughout a day, you're looking at kind of 3 to 4 portions from this section, which means if you're having a big steak, you can still have a big steak, but maybe you just need to be mindful of what you're having for the rest of the day. So if you're having a chicken sandwich for lunch, but you know you're going for a steak at night, it might be you don't have a chicken sandwich for lunch, you just have something like a soup or a roll or a cheese sandwich or something, and then have your steak at night. That could be bigger than that, because let's be honest, if you were served that, you would not be very happy. So yes, so deck of card size is kind of the recommended portion size for meat. 3 to 4 portions a day is what you're kind of looking at for that as well. So again, that can spread out throughout the course of a day, but if you are having your steak at night, then you might want to think about how much you're having throughout the day. The next section is going to be fruit and veg. So this section here, obviously we know is very important for our health and one that we should be eating. The message is, and I think we all know the message here, is 5 a day is what we're aiming for. But again, make a change. The program supports small changes. So if you don't eat any of this stuff, if you only have maybe 1 portion or 2 portions a day, then nobody's expecting you to jump up to 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever it might be. At the moment, it's just about trying to find out how we can maybe get more of this stuff into your diet, but not making it challenging or not making it difficult for you. So obviously, say 5 a day, almost in a way, the more of this stuff the better, but as with anything else, too much of a good thing is still too much, so you want to be mindful of that. So something like a good size apple or an orange or a banana, that tends to be 1 portion, so that's how much of that you kind of want to eat. And obviously eating 5 apples a day doesn't give you 5 a day. You want to try and eat a varied amount of this type of food. So almost think about the rainbow is what they say. So you're getting a spread of colours to get a spread of the different kind of benefits from all the fruits and veg. In terms of the split between fruit and veg, quite a lot of people say about fruit's high in sugar, so I don't know if I should be eating it. Again, you would need to eat a lot of it to eat too much, but it is something to be mindful of. So what we try and say is, whatever it is, whether you're eating 1 a day, 5 a day or 10 a day, always try and have more veg than fruit. So if you're having 5 a day, it'd be 2 fruit and 3 veg would be the kind of split that you want to do. So always a bit more veg than fruit. And you're basically just trying to fit this stuff in wherever you can. And quite often, as we say, when you're reducing other food groups, this is the stuff that you can use to start bulking out meals. Beans and pulses, so things like lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, butter beans, anything like that are really good again to bulk out meals. We use them a lot in kind of curries and stews and that type of cooking. Very high in protein, very high in fibre, but also a portion of these counts towards your 5 a day as well. So if you're not a big fan of fruit and veg, maybe look at introducing some more of this stuff and to get more towards your 5 a day. The main thing to be mindful of from the fruit and veg section is your fruit juice. So again, just a small glass is absolutely fine, and that counts towards your 5 a day. So 1 small glass, again about 150 mils to 200 mils is 1 portion. If you drank 2 of those though, the fruit juice, the second glass, counts just as food high in sugar basically. So it's not a way to get all of your 5 a day, but it can be a way to get 1 of your 5 a day. So that's kind of all the main food groups, and that's a quick guide, very quick guide to portion sizes. The last thing to really talk about is this section that you'll see in the booklet that's just off the plate. So that's basically foods high in fat and sugar. So crisps, chocolate, biscuits, sweets, all that kind of nice and tasty stuff, I'm afraid, is not even on the plate. Now we talk more about that next week, and we'll go into it then. But just to kind of give you a rough idea, all these foods that we've mentioned on the plate, they're all an important part of a balanced diet. So they are foods that we should be eating because they all contain nutrients and give us a benefit. The foods here, so the foods high in fat and sugar, tend not to have really any nutrient value. So whilst there is some booklets in some places that will give you a kind of rough portion guide, the simple fact is there is no portion guide for this type of food. It's really just, again, to think about how often to eat this food, how much of it you're actually having. The reason there's no portions for it is because there's no real nutrient benefit to eating it, apart from the fact that it tastes good. So yeah, so again, just be aware of that and think about how often you're having it, and think about having a more balanced diet and more balanced plate in front of you. So I hope that helps for week 1. What we ask you to do now is have a wee think. You've got your manuals, you've got your workbooks, so have a look through and think about 1 or maybe 2 goals that you can set that relate to how you can change your diet and start to look at your portion sizes. Obviously, myself and Sam will be in touch with you to see how you're getting on. But in the meantime, if there is anything at all, please don't wait for us to contact you. Just give us a wee phone and give us an email. You've got our contact details, so just get in touch. And we'll be back next week with the next video, which is all about a balanced diet. Thank you. Goodbye.